Have you ever noticed how the world feels different before it wakes up? There's a softness in the air, a stillness that feels ancient. The wind whispers instead of rushes. Even your thoughts speak a little quieter. It's strange how something as simple as the hour you rise can change everything about how your life feels. But most of us don't notice. We wake just in time to keep up, to chase the day, not meet it. We leap into noise, into motion, into tasks, and slowly, without meaning to, we forget ourselves. But what if the morning was more than a time of day? What if it was a doorway to clarity, to peace, to power? Waking up early isn't about discipline for the sake of hustle. It's not about squeezing more hours into your life. It's about creating space to feel again, to breathe before the world starts pulling, to remember who you are before the day tells you who to be. This habit, so simple, has a hidden depth, a quiet kind of transformation. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Because when you wake up early, you don't just get a head start on the day. You get a head start on yourself. Number 1, the world is still as you are. Waking up early is an invitation not to do more, but to feel more. There is a moment right before the world stirs. No engines, no conversation, no screens lighting up, just quiet. The sky still wears its shadows. The earth hasn't begun to hum yet. And in that space, there is a kind of sacred neutrality, a pause in the machinery of modern life. That's where you meet the morning, not in a rush, not with alarms blaring and notifications buzzing, but in stillness. And in that stillness, something remarkable happens. You begin to feel the weight of being alive again, not in a heavy way, but in a way that reminds you, you're not just a task list. You're not just a role in someone else's day. You are breath. You are awareness. You are life. Awake. When you rise before the world, you get to notice things most people miss. The sound of your own footsteps on a wooden floor, the faint whistle of the kettle as it warms, the shape of morning light as it climbs across the wall slowly, gently, without. You begin to realize that this peace was always here. It's not that the world suddenly became calm. It's that you made space for it to show you it's calm. Early mornings reveal a truth we often forget. The world isn't noisy by default. We just tend to meet it in noise. But if you change how you enter the day meets you differently too. That's why early mornings feel like a secret, because they give you something no one else can offer you. An unclaimed moment. A moment to be, without pressure. A moment to exist, not perform. And when you begin your day in this kind of space, you carry it with you. Through meeting, through traffic, through chaos and conversation. You carry the stillness like a thread through the noise. And that thread keeps you centered, even when the world pulls. You don't need a mountain retreat to feel peace. You don't need a perfect life to feel present. You just need a few quiet minutes, given to yourself, before the world gets loud. Because stillness isn't something you find, it's something you remember. And the morning remembers it with you. Number 2, you meet your mind before the world meets you. Most of the time we wake up into the world. We open our eyes and immediately reach for the phone, for the schedule, for the noise. We go from dreaming to reacting in a matter of seconds. But waking up early, intentionally, changes the direction. Instead of waking up into the world, you wake up into yourself. There's a subtle moment right after you open your eyes, before your thoughts start forming sentences. In that space, your mind is soft, malleable. It's not yet armored with defense. It hasn't built its stories. It's listening. And this is where everything can shift. Because when you meet your mind before the world does, you're not reacting. You're choosing. You're choosing how to breathe. You're choosing your rhythm instead of inheriting one. You see, your mind is like a garden, and in those early moments, the soil is untouched. You get to decide what grows. Maybe it's quiet, maybe it's gratitude, maybe it's a reminder. I don't have to be perfect today. I just have to be present. That's the gift. You're not fixing anything. You're simply arriving to yourself. And when you begin the day from this space of awareness instead of urgency, you carry a different kind of energy into the world. You don't just hear what people say, you listen. You don't just do what needs to be done. You choose how to show up. You don't just move through time. You fill it with presence. You might even notice how rare that is. How few people actually check in with themselves. How most people don't know how they feel until it explodes. But you gave yourself that space. You met your mind before anyone else did. And because of that, you lead the day instead of following it. There's a powerful clarity that comes from knowing your own thoughts before anyone else's opinions flood in. There's a quiet confidence that comes from remembering, this is who I am, before the world tells me who to be. Not every morning will feel perfect. You'll still have tired days. You'll still wake up foggy sometime. That's okay, because the point isn't to master the morning. The point is to meet yourself gently, consistently, with kindness. And in that meeting, you discover something sacred, that your thoughts aren't enemies. Your emotions aren't flawed. Your mind isn't a battlefield. It's just a voice waiting for your presence. And in the early morning light, when the world is still quiet, you finally hear it. Number 3, a slow start builds better decisions. There's a rhythm to life, but most of us are out of sync with it. We wake up late, rush to get dressed, swipe through notifications before we've even breathed deeply once. We hit the ground running and wonder why we feel off balance all day. But here's a quiet truth. The speed at which you begin sets the pace for everything that follows. When your morning is frantic, your decisions come from that same energy. Impatient, reactive, clouded. But when your morning is slow, your mind learns to see, not just respond. Imagine this. You wake up, not to an alarm, but to stillness. You stretch, breathe, sit with yourself for a moment. There's no rush, just rhythm, just intention. Before the messages come in, before the world needs something from you. In that space, your decisions aren't made by pressure. They're shaped by clarity. You think better because you've created space to think. You listen better because you've already listened to yourself. You act better because you've grounded yourself in stillness, and stillness sharpens judgment. How often do we say yes when we mean no? Because we didn't take a moment to ask what we really feel. How many choices do we make out of habit, not wisdom? But a slow morning becomes a practice in discernment. You start to notice, I don't need to check my phone right now. I don't actually want to say yes to that meeting. Maybe I need to rest today, not push harder. These aren't just good decisions. They are honest decisions. Decisions rooted in presence, not in pressure. And it's not just about big life choices. Whether you speak or stay silent, all of that begins with how you begin. It's powerful because it trains the mind to pause, and in that pause, wisdom speaks. Words we didn't mean, plans we didn't think through, moments we didn't fully live. But when you give yourself even 20 minutes of calm, of walking slowly, sipping slowly, breathing slowly, you begin to remember what matters. You create a buffer between impulse and action. And in that space, you find your better self. Not your perfect self, but the self that chooses instead of reacts. The self that listens instead of assumes. The self that leads your life rather than chases after it. Because the day is coming either way. The question is, will you meet it with clarity, or will you let it sweep you away? Start slow, decide better, live deeper. It begins the moment you choose stillness over rush. Number 4, time for yourself is time to return. Somewhere along the way, life became a race to respond, a race to keep up, a race to be enough. And in that race, Something quietly slipped out of our hands. Ourselves. We give and give to work, to family, to expectation, to routine, until eventually we forget what it's like to sit in a room and feel whole without needing to be anyone else. But the early morning, that sacred window before the world begins, gives you something most of the day will not. A moment that belongs only to you. No one is emailing. No one is calling. No one is watching or asking or judging. Just you and just you and be. And in that simple space, you return. Return to the version of yourself who isn't measured by output, who isn't praised or punished for performance, who doesn't need to post, impress, or explain. Just exist. Just be. It sounds so simple, but it's become rare. Because in a world that's always pulling you outward, early mornings gently pull you inward again. You may pour a cup of tea. You may journal. You may stretch, or sit, or simply look at the light changing in the sky. And in that pause, without even trying, you start to remember the things you forgot, the dream you had but buried, the part of yourself that feels joyful just because, the quiet truth you keep suppressing in the noise of the day. This is not self-care in the commercial sense. It's not another task to complete. It's sacred maintenance of your soul, of your spirit, of your sanity. Because the truth is, you cannot pour from a cup that's always empty. And you cannot know yourself if you're always escaping yourself. But in the early hours, when it's just you and the sky, you remember, you were never meant to be constantly available to the world. You were meant to be available to yourself first. And when you show up for others with more presence, more love, more patience, more truth, because you're not operating from depletion. You're giving from overflow, and that changes everything. So give yourself that time, not as a reward, but as a return. Return to quiet. Return to you. Number 5. Morning discipline becomes inner freedom. Let's be honest. Waking up early is not always romantic. Your bed is warm. Your mind says, just 5 more minutes. The world is still asleep, and part of you wants to be too. Discipline, not the harsh kind. Not the kind that shames or punishes. The kind that whispers, I show up for myself even when I don't feel like it. This is where real freedom is born. Because we often confuse freedom with ease. We think freedom means doing whatever we want, whenever we want. But that kind of freedom often becomes chaos, and chaos becomes chains. True freedom is not about escaping structure. It's about building a life you trust. And trust is built in the quiet choices, the small commitments, the early wake-ups. Every time you rise early, you're telling yourself, I am someone who can be relied on. I do hard things, not for the world, but for my own peace. That kind of consistency transforms you. It redefines your relationship with yourself. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop needing perfect conditions. You start moving from something deeper, integrity. And the beauty is, this integrity ripples. You say no to things that don't align. You speak with clarity. You work with presence. You listen with patience. Because your life is no longer built on randomness, but on rhythm. Morning discipline isn't about waking up early just to be productive. It's about proving to yourself, again and again, that you are capable of choosing the path of presence. It's a quiet revolution, one that no one else may notice, but you feel it in your energy, in your confidence, in the way your day bends to your will, not the other way around. You begin to carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with groundedness, with steadiness, because you've built your mornings, not on urgency, but on deliberate, soulful action. You become someone who creates space, not just in your calendar, but in your mind. And that space becomes freedom. Freedom from rushing, freedom from regret, freedom from the version of you that always needed the world to give you direction. Now you give it to yourself. all from a simple habit done with love. That's the power of morning discipline. It's not a punishment, it's a liberation, not from sleep, but from stagnation, not from rest, but from forgetting who you really are. And every morning you choose it again. You're walking yourself back to that freedom. In the end, waking up early isn't about adding more hours to your day. Conclusion: a quiet rebirth. Every morning. It's about returning to the hours you already have and meeting them awake. You choose you. You choose silence over scroll. And in that small sacred act, you choose presence over pressure. You begin again. Who listen, not just to start the day, but to become the kind of person who lives with intention. Because how you wake up shapes how you live. Who slows down, who doesn't just chase time, but honors it. So tomorrow morning when the alarm whispers and the world is still asleep, and how you live shapes who you become. Ask yourself, your first answer isn't a word. Who do I want to be in this life I'm quietly building? And maybe, just maybe, it's a breath, a rising sun through your window, a pause, the beginning of everything, starting with you.